Welcome to an Avoiding Plagiarism tutorial presented by University of Mount Olive, Moye Library. According to UMO's Academic Integrity Policy, plagiarism is the intention and unattributed theft of another person's work, thoughts, and ideas in order to misrepresent the other's work as your own. Plagiarism is considered the most egregious form of cheating in academia. Also, there is a burden of clear proof from the instructor that plagiarism has occurred per UMO's definition. While UMO's definition requires the student's intent to commit plagiarism, many others do not see intent as being relevant. It's best to understand the different types of plagiarism and how to avoid plagiarism altogether.
If you are found guilty of plagiarism, plagiarism can lead to a failing grade, academic probation, and expulsion.
There are 4 types of plagiarism: direct, Mosaic, self, and accidental. We're going to first start off looking at self-plagiarism. Yes, you can plagiarize yourself in academia. Even if you use a passage from an essay from another class in a way that doesn't constitute plagiarism, you still must have the permission from all instructors involved. That includes your current instructor and the instructor of the class for which the quoted essay was written. So now let's look at accidental plagiarism. As I mentioned earlier, UMO requires clear evidence that the student intentionally committed plagiarism, but accidental plagiarism is still plagiarism and should be avoided. Accidental plagiarism consists of incorrect or missing citation, quotation marks, etc. You may be wondering if plagiarism can be judged as accidental rather than intentional. Well, your instructor will usually be able to determine if it is accidental based on whether these mistakes occur often or not. Just an extra tip: instructors know how you write, so don't try to pass off something as yours that is not. So that leads us to direct plagiarism. Direct plagiarism is your basic copy-paste without the correct quotation style and or no citation. So let's look at an example of direct plagiarism. The source text from Thomas Kuhn is on the left and the offending writer's text is on the right. Notice that everything in red is a direct word-for-word copying of the source text. The plagiarized example also doesn't include correct quotation marks, nor does it include an in-text citation. Also, the writer omitting "for example" and substituting "much of," with "some scientists say that," makes no difference in classifying this as direct plagiarism, as the offending writer tries to pass off Thomas Kuhn's work as his own, almost completely word for word. Now we will see the correct way to use Thomas Kuhn's text. First, let's look at the words in blue. The writer has used a signal phrase to introduce that they are about to state another person's thought, as they write, "Thomas Kuhn asserts that scientific research." Signal phrases are not always necessary, but they do help indicate to the reader when someone else's thought begins and then ends with the in-text citation. The reason that you are seeing the 1996 in parentheses after Kuhn's name is because that is an in-text citation format style from APA 7th edition. Now notice the words in green are copied word for word, but the difference is that the writer uses the correct quotation format with quotation marks and then finishes up the in-text citation with the page number being 5. So let's look at the second part of the passage, now in gold. Instead of using direct quotations as they did in the first part of the passage, the writer now paraphrases the source text by using his own words. He does not use a signal phrase either. So the in-text citation at the end of the passage reads, Kuhn, 1996, P.5, all in parentheses. I will discuss paraphrasing later in this video. Different writing format styles have different citation formats, so when you are writing, please use the style that your instructor asks for. We will now look at mosaic plagiarism. Mosaic plagiarism is also thought of as patch writing or incorrect paraphrasing. The writer uses the source text while substituting words and phrases with synonyms without altering the structure of the text. So let's look at an example of mosaic plagiarism. In this example, the source text again is on the left and the plagiarized is on the right. Understanding mosaic plagiarism is a little more complex than understanding direct plagiarism. So let's look at the first part of the text that's highlighted in orange. The offending writer changes a few things in the first section by omitting "an" from "an understanding," changing "of the methods psychologists use" to "the research methods of psychologists," and also substituting the word "flawed" with "imperfect." They also use the verb "is" in place of "can be." The one thing they do not do is change the structure. So basically, the offending writer's voice is not there. They've pretty much expressed the source text in exactly the same way. So let's look at the second part of the passage in red. The offending writer's use of the semicolon is in no way different than using comma and. The rest of the second passage is practically word for word with the exception of the use of imperfections for the word flaws. The fact that there is a citation is inconsequential as plagiarism has already occurred. Now let's take a look at a correct usage. Right out of the gate, the writer omits "in psychology." The writer sees no point in mentioning psychology in a prepositional phrase when psychologists are mentioned in the passage. Notice the words in blue, "to understand" and "knowing." At first glance, you may think that "to understand" refers to "an understanding" in red at the beginning of the source text, but it actually refers to "knowing" in the second part of the passage. So we see a change in structure already. Potential weakness in blue is used to represent "can be flawed" and "those flaws" from the source text. Research in green in the correct usage text is used to represent both uses of research in the source text. Now let's look at the second part of the passage in the correct usage text. The writer alters the structure of the first part of the source text passage. The writer also changes the grammatical form of understanding to its infinitive verb form, "to understand." They also change "methods psychologists use" to the more passive "methods used by psychologists." Finally, we have the correct in-text citation. You may ask why correct usage passage is correct when the offending writer used synonyms for words and phrases also. Well, the difference is that the offending writer did not alter the structure, while the correct usage writer did alter the structure, and in doing so created their own voice, meaning that they wrote the passage in their own words. So let's look at what a paraphrase is. A correct paraphrase will be in your own words. It will retain the original meaning. It will retain all important information. And finally, it will be structurally different. Now we will go over the different steps of creating a paraphrase. Number 1, read the passage until you understand it. This goes for paraphrasing and direct quoting. If you do not understand the passage in its context, you do not need to use that passage until you do understand it. Number 2, highlight key concepts. Highlighting key concepts will help you retain the original meaning and important information. Number 3, find synonyms for important words. Number 4, remove the source text from your view. Number 5, explain the meaning of the passage out loud. If you cannot do this, go back to step 1 because your understanding of the passage needs to be better. Number 6, write your paraphrase. Number 7, compare your paraphrase with the original. Check for accuracy of the information and check to see if the structure has been altered. If these are not met, go back to step 1. Finally, number 8, cite your sources correctly. Citations are important because they allow you to give proper credit to the source text author.
If you have any questions about how to cite a resource, you should first ask your instructor which citation style you should be using, and if they want anything special to be included. Then you may visit Moye Library's Citing Sources and Avoiding Plagiarism page, which there is a link under Quick Links on the library's home page labeled Citing. I would also suggest conferring with the Citation Styles Manual, which is available online and in the library. I would also suggest taking a look at Purdue OWL's Online Writing Center, which is an excellent resource for writing and citations. If you need any further help on your citations, you can contact us in the library, or you may also contact the Writing Center.
So now let's look at some tips for avoiding plagiarism. These are also good for writing research papers more effectively. First, do not procrastinate. Give yourself plenty of time to research and write. Next, make sure you understand the passages that you are paraphrasing or quoting. As I mentioned earlier, if you cannot understand those passages in its context, then you need to keep rereading them until you finally understand them well. Next, double check your citations to make sure they are correct, not only the format but also the citation's content. Finally, take notes while you are researching and writing. This is a good practice to pick up. If you take notes, you can point to what article goes with what certain quote or paraphrase, thus making it easier to create your references and check to make sure that your quotes and paraphrases are accurate. Thank you for watching. For more information or help concerning library services, please visit umo.edu/library.